have been dealing with a complicated family situation that keeps getting worse by the day. My younger sister Nadine, 31F, and I grew up extremely close despite the small age gap. Our parents worked long hours at their restaurant business, so we basically raised each other. I helped her with homework, attended all her school events, and even saved up my allowance to buy her first phone when we started high school. Nadine was my best friend, my confidant, and the person I trusted most in the world. That's why her betrayal hurt more than anything else I've experienced. 8 years ago, Nadine started working at a marketing firm downtown. She was really excited about her new job and kept talking about this amazing coworker Mark, 36M, who was helping her learn the ropes. She insisted that he would be perfect for me and basically forced us to meet at the company Christmas party. I have to admit, she was right. Mark and I clicked instantly. He was charming, intelligent, and seemed to genuinely care about making a difference in his work. We dated for a year before getting married in a beautiful ceremony where Nadine was my maid of honor. She cried more than our mom during the vows and gave the most touching speech about finally having a brother. The first few years of marriage were like a dream. Mark and I both had successful careers, we bought a beautiful house in the suburbs, and we had date nights every Friday without fail. Nadine was always around, coming over for dinner 3 or 4 times a week, hanging out with us on weekends, and she even had her own key to our place. I never minded because she was my sister and I loved having her around. Mark seemed to enjoy her company too, often saying how lucky he was to have gained such an amazing sister-in-law. Things started changing about 4 years into our marriage. I got promoted to department head at my company, which meant longer hours initially as I adjusted to the new role. Mark seemed supportive at first, but then he started making odd comments about how I was never home anymore. This wasn't true. I made sure to be home by 6:30 most days and still kept our Friday date nights. But he started canceling these dates, claiming he had to work late or had business dinners he couldn't reschedule. He became increasingly secretive with his phone, always placing it face down and taking calls in another room. When I brought this up, he accused me of being paranoid and said I was projecting my work stress onto him. I confided in Nadine about my worries, but she kept defending him. She said I needed to be more understanding because Mark was dealing with some big projects at work. Looking back, I should have realized something was off about how quickly she jumped to his defense. The truth came out in the worst way possible. I came home early one day with a terrible migraine and decided to organize our home office while waiting for my medication to kick in. As I was sorting through some papers, I found our joint credit card statement. There were charges from expensive restaurants I'd never heard of, hotel bookings on days Mark was supposedly at conferences, and jewelry store purchases that I'd never received. When I confronted him that evening, he broke down and admitted he'd been having an affair with a client for the past 6 months. I was devastated and immediately called Nadine, expecting my sister to be my rock through this nightmare. Instead, she said something that felt like a punch to my stomach. She already knew about the affair. She had seen Mark with this woman multiple times over the past few months but never told me because she thought I must have done something to push Mark away. She actually said I had become too career-obsessed and wasn't being attentive enough to my husband's needs. My own sister was justifying Mark's cheating. The divorce turned uglier than I could have imagined. Mark tried claiming I was the one who had destroyed our marriage by prioritizing my career over our relationship. To my horror, Nadine not only sided with him but actively helped him build his case. She testified in court about how I was always working late, missing family events, and how Mark had confided in her about feeling neglected. She twisted every innocent incident into evidence of my supposed neglect, like the time I missed a dinner because I had food poisoning, or when I had to go on a business trip during Mark's office party. She told our extended family that I was partly to blame for the marriage failing. Our cousin Amy, who had always looked up to me, stopped speaking to me because Nadine convinced her I was the villain in this story. She even told our parents that Mark had tried everything to save the marriage but I was too selfish to see what I was losing. Our parents tried staying neutral through all this, which honestly hurt almost as much as Nadine's betrayal. They suggested family counseling, saying there must be a way to fix things. But how do you fix something like this? How do you forgive your sister for choosing your cheating husband over you? After the divorce was finalized, I cut contact with Nadine and moved to a different part of the city. I needed a fresh start where I wouldn't run into either of them at the grocery store or local coffee shop. Last week, after 3 years of blessed silence, Nadine showed up at my door crying. She lost her job 2 months ago and can't afford her apartment anymore. She claimed she tried staying with our parents but they don't have enough space since our younger brother John moved back in with his kids after his wife passed away last year. She begged me to let her stay in my spare room, promising she had changed and regretted everything. I told her absolutely not. I reminded her how she betrayed me during the most difficult time of my life, choosing my cheating ex-husband over her own sister. She started crying harder and admitted she had also borrowed money from Mark after losing her job, but he refused to help her anymore. The audacity of asking him for help after everything that happened made me even more angry. Our parents called me later that day and said I was being heartless. They pulled the family card, saying she's still my sister regardless of her past mistakes. But I don't see it that way. She chose Mark over me when I needed her the most, and now she only wants my help because she has no other options. I told them I would rather donate that spare room to a homeless shelter than let Nadine stay there. Nadine has been posting on social media about how family should forgive each other and sharing quotes about sisterly love. Some of our cousins have been commenting that I'm being cruel and need to let go of the past. But I just can't forget how she testified against me in court and tried to paint me as a bad wife to justify Mark's cheating. Ida for refusing to help her now? Update 1. It's been 3 weeks since my last post, and the situation has somehow managed to get even worse. After I refused to let Nadine move in, she completely lost it. She started showing up at my friends' houses, telling them sob stories about how I abandoned her when she needed me most. She even contacted my old college roommate Lisa, who I haven't spoken to in years, to try to get her to convince me to change my mind. But Nadine crossed a line when she showed up at my workplace last Thursday. I work at a prestigious consulting firm where maintaining a professional image is crucial. She walked into our office lobby during lunch hours, wearing the same clothes she'd had on 2 days before when she tried confronting me at the grocery store. She started loudly telling anyone who would listen about how her heartless sister was leaving her homeless. My coworkers were shocked. I've always kept my personal life private at work. Nadine was making a scene, crying and showing people old family photos she had on her phone. Thankfully, my boss Rebecca was amazing about the whole thing. She's dealt with her own family drama and recognized Nadine's behavior as manipulation. She had security escort Nadine out and helped me document the incident in case I need a restraining order. Later that evening, my younger brother John called me. We haven't been particularly close since his wife passed away. He's been focused on raising his kids and dealing with his grief, which I completely understand. But what he told me changed everything I thought I knew about the situation. Nadine had been lying about staying with our parents. They had actually kicked her out after just 2 weeks because she was bringing random men home late at night, eating all their food without contributing anything, and being incredibly disrespectful to them. She would stay out until 3 or 4 in the morning, then sleep all day on their couch. When Mom asked her to at least help with dishes or laundry, Nadine screamed at her about how no one understood what she was going through. But the real bombshell came when John told me why Nadine actually lost her job. It wasn't because of company downsizing like she claimed. She had been caught stealing money from the company accounts, over $50,000 over the course of 6 months. She would create fake vendor invoices and have the payment sent to her personal account. The only reason she wasn't arrested was because her boss, ironically the same woman she had introduced Mark to, took pity on her and agreed not to press charges if she resigned quietly and paid back the money. I was absolutely furious. Nadine had tried to make me feel guilty about not helping her while hiding all of this. I called her immediately, my hands shaking as I dialed her number. When she answered, I demanded to know if what John told me was true. She broke down crying and admitted everything. Apparently, she had gotten into gambling during the pandemic when she was bored and lonely during lockdown. What started as online poker games for fun turned into an addiction. She has massive debts to online gambling sites and even some loan sharks. That's why she had been borrowing money from Mark too. But the worst revelation came next. During my divorce 3 years ago, Mark had promised to help Nadine with her gambling debts if she testified against me. She admitted that everything she said in court was a lie. I hadn't neglected my marriage or prioritized work over Mark. She made it all up because she was desperate for money and Mark had promised to bail her out. He knew about her gambling problem and used it to manipulate her into helping him make me look bad during the divorce. She tried to justify it by saying she was at rock bottom then and didn't know what else to do. She claimed Mark had threatened to expose her gambling addiction to our parents and her workplace if she didn't help him. But I don't believe her anymore. She had plenty of opportunities to come clean after the divorce, to apologize and tell me the truth. Instead, she kept lying and manipulating everyone around her. I hung up on her mid-explanation and blocked her number. Then I blocked her on all social media and sent emails to my apartment building security and my workplace with her photo, asking them not to let her in. Some family members are still saying I should help her since she's clearly hitting rock bottom, but I refuse. This wasn't just one mistake or moment of weakness during my divorce. She's been lying and manipulating everyone for years. Mom called yesterday crying, asking me to reconsider because Nadine is family and needs help. But where was this concern for family when Nadine was lying in court to help my cheating ex-husband? Where was this worry about helping family when she was stealing from our parents and treating their home like a hotel? I told Mom I love her, but Nadine made her choices and now she has to live with them. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update, and everything has finally blown up in the worst possible way. Nadine hit rock bottom, and the truth came out in a way that has torn our family apart completely. Last week, my parents called me at 3 a.m., both of them crying so hard I could barely understand what they were saying. While staying with them, Nadine had stolen Mom's entire jewelry collection and Dad's rare coin collection. Mom's jewelry included pieces from our grandmother who passed away last year, her wedding ring, the pearl necklace she wore on her 50th wedding anniversary, and the diamond earrings that were supposed to be passed down to her great-grandchildren. These weren't just valuable items, they were irreplaceable family treasures filled with generations of memories. Dad's coin collection was his pride and joy. He started it when he was just 12 years old with a silver dollar his father gave him. He spent over 40 years building that collection, often skipping lunch at work to save money for rare coins. He used to spend hours telling us stories about each coin's history and teaching us about different currencies. Some weekends, he would take us to coin shows and let us help him organize his collection. It was worth a lot of money, but the sentimental value was priceless. They discovered the theft when Mom went to get her pearl necklace for my cousin's wedding. The jewelry box was completely empty except for a few cheap costume pieces. When they checked Dad's coin collection in his study, all the valuable coins were gone, replaced with regular pocket change. Nadine must have thought they wouldn't notice right away if she left some replacements. When they confronted her, Nadine's reaction was absolutely disgusting. She tried to blame her gambling addiction, saying she wasn't in her right mind. Then she had the nerve to say they owed her this because they always loved me more than her. She claimed she only took what should have been her inheritance anyway. She begged them not to go to the police, promising she would find a way to pay them back. But this time, our parents didn't back down. They finally realized that their attempts to help Nadine have only enabled her destructive behavior. They filed a police report that same day. The police found that Nadine had sold most of the jewelry to different pawn shops across the city. The coins had been sold to various collectors through online forums. She got less than a quarter of their actual value because she was desperate for quick cash. Nadine was arrested at a casino where she was trying to win enough money to supposedly buy back some of the jewelry. She's currently in jail waiting for her court date. The police investigation revealed even more of her crimes. She had stolen from several friends who had let her crash on their couches, taking cash, credit cards, and anything else she could easily sell. The most twisted part of this whole mess came out when Mark contacted me. At first, I ignored his calls and messages, but then he emailed me something that made my jaw drop. Nadine had been blackmailing him for the past year. Apparently, she had evidence that he was cheating on his new wife too, photos and videos of him with multiple women. She had been threatening to send everything to his new wife unless he kept giving her money. Mark forwarded me the threatening texts and emails from Nadine. She had been ruthless, demanding larger amounts each time and threatening to destroy his new marriage and career if he didn't pay. When he finally stopped giving her money, she made good on her threats and sent everything to his new wife. That's why he stopped helping Nadine. His new wife had left him and he couldn't afford to keep paying her blackmail money while going through another divorce. Our parents are completely devastated. Mom hasn't stopped crying, and Dad hasn't spoken a word since filing the police report. They finally admitted that they should have taken my side during the divorce instead of trying to stay neutral. They apologized for pressuring me to forgive Nadine and acknowledged that I was right to keep my distance. Dad said he feels like he failed as a parent, wondering how his youngest daughter turned into someone who could steal precious family heirlooms and betray her own sister. The family is divided. Some relatives are still saying we should help Nadine with her legal troubles because she's family and clearly needs help with her addiction. Others are furious about the theft of the family heirlooms and want nothing to do with her. I'm just trying to be there for our parents while they process this betrayal. It's ironic that Nadine's actions have finally brought me closer to them after years of strained relationships following my divorce. Update 3, final update after 6 months. The court case is finally over, and Nadine was sentenced to 2 years in prison for grand theft and fraud. The judge took into account all her crimes, the company embezzlement, stealing from our parents, and the multiple thefts from friends who had tried to help her. Her lawyer tried using her gambling addiction as a defense, claiming she needed rehabilitation rather than punishment, but the judge wasn't sympathetic given the calculated nature of her crimes and the emotional impact on our family. My parents spent weeks visiting pawn shops across the city trying to recover Mom's jewelry. They managed to find her wedding ring and a few other pieces, but most of it was already melted down. The coin collection was even harder to trace. Dad found a few of his rarer coins being sold on collector websites, but the sellers wanted much more than Nadine had sold them for. They're still trying to track down the rest, but honestly, it feels hopeless. The whole ordeal has aged our parents terribly. Mom had to start taking anxiety medication because she keeps having panic attacks whenever she thinks about Nadine selling our grandmother's jewelry. Dad retired early from his accounting job because he couldn't focus on work anymore. They've completely cut contact with Nadine and have revised their will to remove her entirely. They even changed the locks on their house and installed security cameras, which breaks my heart because they never used to worry about home security before. Mark's life has fallen apart too, though I can't say I feel sorry for him. His new wife didn't just leave him, she exposed his cheating to everyone at his company. He lost his job because apparently, he had been sleeping with clients and coworkers, creating a hostile work environment. He tried reaching out to me, probably hoping for sympathy since we're both Nadine's victims now, but I blocked him immediately. I heard through mutual friends that he had to sell his house and move in with his brother because he can't afford his lifestyle anymore while going through a second divorce. Nadine tried writing me a letter from prison, full of apologies and promises to make things right once she's released. She claims she's attending gambling addiction meetings in prison and finally understands how much damage she's caused. But it's too little, too late. I returned the letter unopened. Some wounds are too deep to heal, and some bridges stay burned. The extended family has finally stopped pressuring me to reconcile with Nadine. Her actions affected everyone. She had stolen from several cousins who let her stay with them, borrowed money from our aunt under false pretenses, and even tried to scam our elderly uncle by pretending to be a charity collector. They all understand now why I had to cut her out of my life 3 years ago. I'm focusing on rebuilding my relationship with our parents. We have dinner together every Sunday now, something we haven't done since before my divorce. Last week, Dad showed me some old photos he found while cleaning his study, pictures of Nadine and me as kids, playing in the backyard, dressed up for Halloween, celebrating birthdays. Looking at those photos felt like looking at strangers. That happy little girl in the photos died somewhere along the way, replaced by someone I don't recognize and don't want to know. Mom asked if I would ever forgive Nadine, and I told her the truth, some things can't be forgiven. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to let go of toxic people, even if they're family. Blood might be thicker than water, but it can still turn poisonous. I've made peace with my decision to keep Nadine out of my life permanently, and finally, my family has too.